Today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. Now, my experience with this game will probably be a little different than most people, because I think most people, when they buy this game, they'll play through books 1 through 7 in order. And they'll do that because the game starts off very simple in book 1. It's kind of a campaign game, and after game 1 you unlock some new stuff, some new rules, some new components. Then you play game 2, and game 2 is also pretty simple, and it escalates in complexity up until you get to the point of game 7, which is the climactic book, the climactic battle in Harry Potter. I'm not going to spoil anything in this video, but the weird thing about this video is I started with game 7, with book 7, because I have a couple friends who had played through, as a couple, they had played through games 1 through 6 and 7, and they had never beaten 7, and they wanted to give it a try with 4 players, so we played on my game night the other night. And I had a blast playing it. It makes me want to go back and play books 1 through 6, and then 7 again. We played back-to-back games because we lost both of game 7 that we played. Both game 7. So my favorite mechanism in this game, there's actually a lot of cool stuff happening, but as a designer, something I've been thinking about a lot lately is how to give players the tension of, I guess, the potential of dying in a game or being knocked out of a game without actually knocking players out of the game. In a game that I'm working on right now, the way I've been thinking about this is that it's a cooperative game, and when a player dies in the game, everybody just loses. That's the end of the game. But there are some restrictions for that, because it means I have to get the health exactly right in the game, the amount of health that players have, and I need to make sure that there's tension so that they're losing health sometimes, and almost on a steady basis somehow, so that the game will eventually end, unless they win it. They can either lose it or win it. But it creates some complications, and I wasn't wrapping my mind around it as well as I could as a designer. And then I played Harry Potter's Hogwarts Battle. It's hard to say for some reason. And another game that I'll talk about next week, Near and Far, which has kind of a similar mechanism to this, but in a nice little twist. But the key in Hogwarts Battle is that every player has 10 health, and you lose that health often, all the time. But when you get down to 0 health, you don't die. You're just stunned. You've taken a hit. Health represents your life and probably some other things too, some emotional aspects of the game of being stunned. And when that happens, the stakes are still really high, even though at the end of that turn, you will reset back up to 10 health. So I must have been stunned probably 3, 4, 5 times over the course of each of those games that I played. It happens a lot. You're constantly losing health. And when you are stunned, the stakes are that you discard all tokens. So you have these tokens that you collect. You have to discard half the cards in your hand, rounded down. You add a really bad token to the location that you're currently at. So you're kind of fighting through those locations, and you don't want tokens on them. So you add a token to that location. And then, all that's bad stuff. Bad stuff happens, which I think is important. You need high stakes when you're losing health. But the really nice twist, or the other nice twist to this, is that while you are stunned and while you're at a 0 health, anything else that happens during that time doesn't cause you loss of life, because you don't reset until the end of that turn. So if you have just a really bad turn, say you're at 2 health and you have just a terrible turn where you lose 7 health, it's actually not that bad, because you lose a few, you're stunned, and then almost while you're stunned, it gives you a moment to recuperate without fear of losing more health, because you're already at 0, and you wait until the end of the turn to reset. I love all of these dynamics that go into being stunned. I like the high stakes, that it hurts, that it matters when you're stunned, but that you're not knocked out of the game, meaning that the game can feel punishing. I mean, you're in an epic climatic battle, and it's not a one-time knockout. You're going in and in time after time and trying to struggle against the forces of Voldemort. So it makes sense that you're losing a lot of health and then resetting, losing a lot of health and resetting. But I also like that twist where if you are stunned, it actually gives you a moment to recuperate and then reset your health back to 10. So I know there are other games, because I'm going to talk about Near and Far. I know that Arcadia Quest does this too. I'm going to talk about that in the near future. But if you can think of any games that use health as a measure of tension for the game, especially in a cooperative game, without actually knocking players out when you go down to 0 health, when something interesting happens when you go to 0 health. I'd love to hear about that in the comments. Or if you played Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle and want to reveal stuff that's not spoilery, don't do spoilers in the comments. I'd love to hear about that as well. Thanks.